Hello, everyone. So let's just adjust my little screen there. I am currently in Germany. I had a very long flight. It was very difficult to come here. I was actually in Colorado the past couple of months, so I'm back home in Germany now. And I have a topic for you guys today. Actually, I've been posting a lot discussing about spurs and whips. So I'm going to answer some questions which came up during this kind of discussion that has been going around. But I want you at any time to comment in the chat if there's any questions that you guys have, and I will try my best to answer them for you. So yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. And if I don't get to it at the exact moment that you ask the question, then I'll definitely address it at the end. So be sure to just drop it in the comments there. I would love actually to know, where you guys are watching from. So if you want to just go ahead and comment in the little chat there in the comment section, where you are. Yeah, I would love to hear, where in the world you guys are watching it from. I know it's in the afternoon here in Germany, and in America it's quite early in the morning still. So yeah, just comment in the chat, where you are watching from, and then I will go ahead and start on today's topic. So I just want to cover briefly, in case you haven't seen the post, in this discussion of spurs and whips. Now, spurs and whips are gadgets, and a lot of riders use them incorrectly. And so I want to shed a little bit of light on how, do we even need to use them? What are they actually for? Is it like a certain type of horse or personality or certain movements that we're using spurs or whips? And I just want to shed a little bit of light on that. And then I have a little whiteboard, so I'm also going to draw a little bit of a little diagram for you, because actually I got some interesting comments. So someone says, hello, I am from Canada. Yay! So we have somebody watching in Canada. So hello. And yeah, anyways, so yeah, I'm going to be talking shedding a little bit of light about spurs and whips. So again, at any time, just drop your questions in the comments. So here, let me just go ahead and pull this up. So today's topic, spurs and whips. Now, what I want to say about gadgets, and I call anything which you are using on a horse to try and convince the horse to do something that you want, which isn't coming naturally, a gadget. So a flash noseband, that's a gadget. A martingale, a Pessoa when you're, some people are lunging. These are all gadgets. And then spurs and whips, I'm also going to consider as gadgets. Now, gadgets to me, should be used by professionals, by people who actually know how to use them, who have the timing to use them. And what I see a lot happen is horses become dead to the aids or dead to these little gadgets because they're so used to having, tell me, comment below if you've ever seen something like this happening. A rider is cruising around on a lazy horse, and they're just constantly tapping the horse with the whip, tapping to trot, tapping to speed up and walk, tapping for a canter transition, tapping for, just before a jump, they're just cruising around and there's just endlessly tapping on their horse. And I'll share a story. My mare, Lily, so somebody so Kaylee says, hello, hi, Kaylee. And then we also have Shelly, who's watching from Michigan, 12 inches of snow. Ooh, okay. Anyways, my mare Lily, so when I first got her, she's an Arabian, so she's a very hot, horse. She's got places to go, things to do. And I took her to this little schooling show, and she was in the warm-up arena. And one of the other riders in the warm-up arena, so she's on this big, huge warm blood. I don't even think she was there to participate in the show. I don't know why she was in this arena, but she kept constantly kissing to her horse, very, constantly, she just wouldn't stop kissing to her horse. And my little Arabian hot-blooded mare kept thinking that lady was talking to her. So she kept her legs were flailing at that point. She was just speeding up faster and faster. And she couldn't figure out how to make that lady, not even on her, on the other side of the warm-up arena, how to make her stop. Stop kissing. I'm already going as fast as I can. So that's kind of a good example. So here I am on this little Arabian horse, and she's going as fast as she can. And the lady who's riding her horse, that horse is, basically falling asleep. in the warm-up arena. And, it had kind of tuned her out so much that it wasn't even aware that she was constantly kissing to it. And so that's kind of the example that I'm going to use in this discussion of, spurs and whips, is that horses can very easily become dead to the aids. And so what I want to discuss, so we have a few more comments here. Kaylee, you've seen that. Yes, great. Oh, I know I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. Agitesh? We can you can kind of read the mind of your horse, definitely. And that's something that I can, Hail-It says hi, Hail-It. Perfect. So anyways, in the topic of, having a gadget with your horses, the biggest point that I want to make is actually there are some steps that we need to take before we would even go anywhere near, following it up with a little, tap of the whip or with spurs. So professional riders, or let's say high-level riders, you'll see a lot of like Olympic riders. They'll go into a show jumping ring and almost every other rider has spurs on. So, you might be thinking, well, okay, does that mean that in order to do high-level stuff, do I have to have spurs or a whip? Or, I see it all the time. So what I'll say about that is, so beginner and intermediate riders, they are not necessarily in control of their body and especially their leg position. Okay, so if you have an unstable lower leg, you could be accidentally using spurs on your horse even when you don't realize that you're doing that. Okay, so that's partially what I mean by the horse could become dead to it, because you might be poking them every other step. If you're having a bouncy trot or whatever, you might be using the spur on them and you don't even realize it. So high-level professional riders, the chances of them accidentally spurring the horse when they don't mean to is actually very rare. So it's very, when you have a stable lower leg and you're able to differentiate your right hand from your left hand and your left ankle from your right ankle and your right seat bone and your left seat bone and all of these body parts and pieces, you can actually move separately. Okay, so when you are in full control of your own body as a rider, and you have balance in every gait, in every transition, in every, over every jump, over every whatever it is that you're trying to do, all of the high level like dressage maneuvers. When you are totally stable and balanced in your own riding, you're not accidentally gonna poke your horse with the spurs. So that's why you might see some of the high level riders wearing the spurs. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're using them, but they have them just for that little extra, something like a little refinement. If they just kind of need that little extra something, I don't know, to make a difficult turn or a difficult maneuver where, the horse might not usually need the spurs in other situations, but maybe in that one little scenario, they just wanted that little bit of refinement. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of the difference there when it comes to the spurs. And it's the same with the whip, and that example of that rider that's just constantly tapping their horse with the whip. You will see, a lot of beginner riders or people who aren't really in control of their hands, like they don't know what their hands are doing and their elbows are in the air, or, they're so busy focused on the horse's head that they totally forget what their hands are doing. And, if they have a dressage whip, for example, that lash is going behind them. They can't even see it. They might accidentally be tapping the bum of the horse with that dressage whip. So again, I don't want riders who are not balanced and who are not in control, they don't know what they're doing with their hands or whatever. They shouldn't really be carrying spurs and whips. They need to be focused on their balance. But you will also see people who have been riding for a while. Maybe they do have a stable lower leg or they are balanced, but they also have difficulties with, the biggest thing, which I will say, is they'll have difficulties with timing. Okay, so they don't know exactly the right time to use those gadgets or, the little tap of the whip or whatever. They don't have the timing to differentiate when is the correct time to use it and when is not. So that's a little bit what I want to talk about. And then also, I have a little whiteboard. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. So again, just remember to comment down below, if you guys have any questions and things, and I'll do my best to answer them as I go. And as I, at the end of the video, I'll definitely get around to it. So I want to pull up this whiteboard here. So let me just share my screen quickly. So share screen. So what I want to share with this whiteboard, I'll just pick some color. So let's say this is, the horse. And this is the neck, and this is the horse's head. It's a very fat horse, obviously, and this is their shoulder. Okay, this is their hind legs. They have very skinny legs, this horse. Okay, so this is my horse. Now, what I want to, point out is that this part of the horse, okay, the head, the neck, and the shoulders, this is not controlled by your spurs or your whip. Okay, now obviously if you have a jumping whip, you might tap them on the shoulder, so that is a little bit different. But let's say in the context of maybe you're lunging your horse with a long lunging whip. That's a pretty good, accurate picture, I think. Or you're riding and you have a, dressage whip that you're using, or you are wearing, spurs or something. Okay, so all of these gadgets, your dressage whip and your spurs, these are to talk to this part of your horse, okay, from here until here. So kind of the rib cage and the hindquarters. So you cannot fix something that the horse is doing here incorrectly with this. Now, of course, there are some exceptions when you get to the higher level and you're working on collection. Obviously, the more balanced the horse is from behind, this is their engine. So the more that they carry themselves from behind, the more that this is going to sort of solve itself. But what I mean is, let's say you were trying to do, let's kind of erase some of this. Let's say you were trying to do a leg yield. So you're trying to leg yield, okay? This is your horse. That's its ears. Boop, and that's its tail. So you're trying to do a leg yield. You're trying to go to the rail over here, okay? This is the rail. So the spurs and stuff, as I said, doesn't control the shoulders. So if your horse starts getting to the rail with the shoulder first, okay? So let's say your horse is a little bit crooked. Okay, that's its right leg, that's its left leg. Okay, so your horse is somehow falling to the rail with its shoulders. Yeah, your spurs aren't going to fix that. Okay, because it's actually your reins, your rein aids, which are going to correct the shoulders. So you're going to straighten out your horse. Yes, you might apply a little bit of outside leg to move the butt over a little bit, have it catch up. But actually, it's going to be your rein aids, which are going to sort of ask the horse to bring its shoulders back so that the horse can be straight again to move sideways for a leg yield. Okay, so your spurs, although it might help, your spurs are communicating with this part of the horse, with the bum, but it's going to be your rein aids, which are fixing this, the shoulders. So that is one point that I wanted to make when it comes to, using spurs and things like that, is you can't fix the horse's shoulders or the horse's neck or head with, just poking them with spurs. And then the other thing, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing here for a moment. So the other thing is, and again, hopefully that made a little bit of sense. I know my drawing skills. But the other thing is that a lot of, they'll try and correct the wrong thing by using spurs. How many times did you hear somebody say that you make a horse go forward, make a horse go forward with spurs or the whip? So the implication is that a lazy horse would need spurs or a whip in order to, energize them to make them go forward. And the thing is, there are a lot of things. So if your horse is lazy, and I'm going to use this as the example because this is the most common one I see. So if you feel you have a lazy horse, first, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Is your horse always lazy? Okay, is it lazy when it runs in the field with other horses? Is it lazy when it sees a jump? Is it lazy when you're out on a trail? Like, what circumstances is your horse lazy? Because chances are it's not always lazy. It's probably just lazy in certain situations. So maybe it's when it's bored, when you're just cruising around. Maybe it's when you're trying to do dressage. And maybe if you point that horse in front of a jump, suddenly its ears are perked forward and it's like got a whole new second wind. But a lazy horse is typically a bored horse. A lazy horse is usually tuned you out, dulled the senses. It's usually a very intelligent horse. It's usually a very smart horse, but the horse is just bored out of his mind. Now, if, for example, your horse is lazy in dressage and flat work, but it's not lazy, out on a trail or when it sees a jump, then the solution is not to never do dressage. There's maybe a couple reasons why the horse doesn't like the dressage. Is it because the horse doesn't have the fitness? Okay, does it not have the back muscles? Are you kind of trying to overdo it in the dressage? Is the horse just sore afterwards and, a little bit miserable and tired? So he doesn't want to do dressage stuff. He doesn't have the muscles, so he doesn't want to do it, so he's trying to avoid it. Or is it that he's just, actually bored? He's like, oh, I've done this dressage test a million times. I don't want to keep doing that. So you need to kind of figure it out. And I would definitely suggest to write it down. Write down all of the situations that your horse, your lazy horse, when are they lazy? Is it lazy all the time? What are some exercises that you could do to energize them? So for example, using that horse, which hates dressage or hates schooling in the arena. So what you would do in that scenario, and again, the whip and the spurs isn't really the solution here. The solution is you need to be very interesting, and you need to give them energizing exercises in the warm-up that really light that little fire under their tail, really gets them excited. So, maybe you do a whole lot of transitions, and I mean a lot, like a million of them. So walk, trot, slow walk, speedy walk, slow walk, speedy walk, halt, trot, slow trot, speedy trot, canter transition, halt. You know what I mean? Like lots and lots of transitions, as many transitions as you can possibly do. And then, maybe you mix it up. Maybe you're doing these transitions on serpentines, or maybe you're doing these transitions doing figure 8 loops, or maybe you have a little pole on the ground and you're kind of zigzagging around a little pole on the ground. I mean, whatever it is, maybe you set up, if you don't have dressage letters in the arena, maybe you set up little cones and you tell yourself, I'm going to do a transition on every single cone, and you just set up 20 cones in the arena. So, in that sense, your horse is always going to be looking around, what are we doing at that cone? What are we doing when we get over there? They're just too engaged and enthusiastic because they don't know what's going on. And that is definitely a way to wake up a lazy horse, okay, is to be very interesting, to give them exercises and activities, which is fun for them, okay? Make it a game, really, make it a fun game. You can even play kind of like red light, green light with your horse. And I know there's a lot of Europeans that maybe don't necessarily know what red light, green light is, but basically it's where, kind of like the traffic signals on the lights. If you say red light, then you have to slow down your transitions. And if you say green light, then you have to speed up. So maybe you have somebody on the ground, like a helper or a family member or a friend, who's shouting to you, red light, and then you have to slow down, and then green light. And, you never know when you're going to have to make a transition. So, make a fun game out of it, and reward your horse for those games, for whatever effort he puts forth, he or she, whatever they are doing for you, reward them like crazy, really make a big, oh, you're the bestest horse I've ever seen in my life. Make a big deal out of it. So, that is a way to energize a horse without using a spur or whip. Now, I will say, if it is, that horse that it just genuinely needs a little tap, a little wake up or something like that, just to kind of get its attention. So for those riders that feel like they have to have a whip or something, then what I would say to them is you should only have to use it once. You should not have to use it more than once. And after your warm-up, you definitely shouldn't have to use it. So the warm-up is kind of your time to get all of the buttons working, okay? You're pushing all the buttons, getting everything working, making sure, whatever your plan is for that day, if you want to go out on a trail ride, or if you're doing a jumping course, or, higher level, dressage things, that's your kind of meat of your exercise. That's your main goal for the day. But you have to have a warm-up plan and a warm-up exercises in order to prepare yourself in order to succeed for your main meat of your exercise, for your goal. So you need to kind of pre-decide what warm-up exercises you can do. And if in the warm-up you feel like, okay, I need to give a little tap with the whip to wake them up, then you need to kind of do it in that way where you do it once, and once is enough. You don't want to just keep harassing them again and again. You don't want to just make them dead to it. Okay, so really and truly, the spurs and the whip is just a tool. And again, more for, let's say, higher level things. I don't want just anyone to have these gadgets, but they should be more of a tool for refining and more like precise precision. They are not to be, used just kind of willy-nilly. It is only for that sort of refining of the aids. Now, I will also say you should always first ask with your leg and your seat aids. So as I had mentioned, in the little whiteboard drawing, you're talking to the body of the horse. So there's different degrees that you might ask with your leg aids. So again, let me just swap over. Let me just swap over to the whiteboard once more. So again, if this is your horse and that's its ears and that's its tail. So your legs are on your horse. That looks really funny, but that's what we're going to do. So your legs are on your horse. Now your legs are wrapped around the belly of the horse, right? That's your leg. That's the horse. That's its ears. That's the tail. Okay, so your leg is sort of wrapped around the belly of the horse. Now, obviously, you can see there's some space here in this particular drawing between the rider's foot and the horse, okay, the space. So maybe if that's the space between, your boot and the horse, maybe the first step is to just, boop, lightly touch the hairs of the horse. Okay, that's the horse's belly. I know this is a really awful drawing. That's your boot. So that's the horse's hairs. Okay, so there's kind of different phases. So let's say that's the horse's hair. Okay, and that's the horse's skin. Yeah, and then, I don't know, maybe that's like the muscle of the horse. Okay, this is the muscle. So your boot for phase 1 might be simply touching the horse's hair. Okay, for phase 2, it might be now you're touching the horse's skin, okay, of the belly. And really by phase 2, they should already feel a difference, okay? You're just kind of closing the contact, okay? So we have different phases that we are asking. Go ahead and switch that off. We have sort of different phases that our legs are asking the horse, and it's sort of the same with the seat as well. If I'm moving with my horse with my seat, okay, I might energize my seat, energize my movements, and that might be phase 2. And maybe phase 3 is like I'm really, maybe more chasing the horse, okay? We shouldn't really have to get to that point. But again, there's kind of different phases. So you need to go through all of the phases with your leg and your seat aids well before you go to, put on a spur or touch them with the whip. So practice that, especially you can practice it even when you're lunging your horse. There's different phases when you're lunging. The whip might be on the ground and you're just pointing with your finger, like, I want you to go this way. Please speed up, with your ground. Phase 2 might be you start jogging in place and you get really energetic. Phase 3 might be, you pick up the whip. You don't do anything with it, but you just pick up the whip. So there's all of these different things that you can do before you even have to bring the whip anywhere near them. And that way the horse has had time to kind of prepare. And the first time when you go to touch the horse's hair, okay, with your boots on their belly, the first time they might not necessarily understand. They might be like, she wasn't touching me a second ago, and now she is. What do you think that means? And then you can kind of encourage them again, and you bring the pressure a little bit more. So now their brain is really thinking like, oh, she didn't back off. So obviously I didn't do what I was supposed to do. What do you think she wants me to do? And then they're going to try something. They're going to volunteer something. Okay, that's how you work with a lot of young horses. Baby horses, when you go to train them, they don't know what the reins mean. They don't know what your legs mean. Like, they don't know any of that stuff. You have to kind of show them what it means. And you show them by letting them volunteer stuff based on what it is that you're doing. So if I'm slightly closing my legs so that it went from not touching them to suddenly touching their hairs, I mean, it's light enough contact. I mean, you're just touching the hairs. But they're going to notice that, and they're going to start wondering, and they're going to start volunteering. And when they volunteer, you can say, good job, or you can kind of let them know, like, oh, that wasn't 100% what I want, but that was close enough. So yeah, that's kind of, again, steps that you can take way before you even get to the spurs on the whip. So I see that we have some questions. So what about when people overuse voice commands? I've seen that too. I ride a thoroughbred who's very responsive to voice command, and once usually is enough. Walk, trot, canter, whoa. Yes. And then there's also a little continuation. With that voice command, I will add a little leg for when needed, and that's pretty much enough for him. So not just talking to horse without using the body. Okay, so I'll go ahead and keep your question up. So what about when people overuse voice commands? So that also is, yes, that's exactly sort of on topic as well. So in the very beginning, I was kind of sharing a story of this lady, and she kept kissing to her horse. Okay, so it's exactly the same with voice commands. You can always overdo things because horses they'll tune it out. Okay, whether it's voice, whether it's tapping them repetitively with the whip, they'll tune it out like it's just noise to them. So we don't want to overdo things. So in the example with voice commands, so in the same what I just said, where first we touch the hair, then we touch maybe the skin. So let's say you're trying to do liberty work, you're trying to lunge your horse at liberty or whatever. You don't have a rope connected to them or a little lunge whip or something. So it's really just your voice or your body commands or your energy. So in that context, the same. You have to have different levels. Okay, and when you're using the voice commands, you have to be very accurate with your timing, and you have to be able to reward them and let them know when they're not necessarily doing it right. So with my horses, both of my mares, they know if they're being naughty, I make this noise. It really is. And they stop. Like whatever it is that they were going to do, they stop it. Or they know instantly that they were being naughty or about to do something naughty. So, they were kind of taught to do that. So I only do that if it's like serious. Okay. If they're just like playing around, having fun in the field, I would never do something like that. So I use that. That's my kind of like, that's my level 4. You don't want to see level 5, like as a parent kind of a thing. And they've never even gotten to level 5 because they like that's enough for them. They hear that and they're like, oh, mommy's not happy. And then they just totally, back off. So it's the same with voice commands. With the voice commands, you want to have very distinct commands that you're doing, exactly like you said. You have, walk, you have trot, you have canter, and you only use those commands in the right time at that moment when you need it. And you don't just keep nagging and nagging and nagging. So if you, for example, were asking for a walk, canter transition, so my horse is walking, I'm walking, and I just say the word canter. That should be enough for my horse to canter. If they don't that first time, then I'm going to have to go to phase 2, which is maybe squeezing with my legs or, whatever phase 2 is for you. So the first voice command, or maybe I say it, very quiet and very sweet the first time. And maybe the second time I'm a little bit more firm in how I say it, like canter. I have like a little bit more energy the next time I say it. So you want to, even with voice commands, have sort of different levels and different degrees. So that way you can have the quiet version. I mean, that's how when you're training horses, especially to get to high levels, that's why the high level horses, it looks like the rider's not even like doing anything. Like you can't see the communication that's going on. It's a lot of communication happening, but a lot of times you can't see it because it's been refined so much. It's so subtle, because they're just touching the horse's hair, or they're just, very quietly like canter, and the horse does it. So, the whole audience, they can't hear that, but the horse can. The horse can pick up on that. The horse can feel, just the hair. I mean, a horse can feel a fly landing on it. So of course it can feel the hair suddenly being touched by, your boot or whatever. So yeah, that was a great question. Hopefully I answered that. So let me just see if there's any other questions or things. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. I know I was able to like actually draw some horrible pictures today for you guys. Yeah, so this video is going to be available, on the YouTube and on my Facebook page and everything. So feel free to come back again and watch it or rewatch it as you need. I'm going to do these Q&A sessions every single week. So anytime you have any questions, send me a message, send me an email. Actually, I'll go ahead and I'll put my email up for you guys. Send me an email. Let me know like what your questions are, and I will try and address them in next week's video. Let me just see another comment. Thanks a lot. That was great. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. So yeah, just send me an email. Again, I'll just go ahead and leave it up there. And I look forward to seeing you guys in next week's session. I will probably have some new topics, but if you guys reach me, before the next video, then I will write down all of your questions and I will make sure that I have time to answer all of the questions that I can. So definitely don't be shy. So thank you so much. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.